My name is Gibson, and I'm the co-owner and creator of the Personal Development School. This is your daily breakthrough video, and in this video, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the red flags a dismissive avoidant attachment style individual does tend to ignore the most when they start off in the dating phase of a relationship. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about why and how this happens. So before I dive in, please know we are still doing our sale to support our community. We have a coupon code for 25% off. It's with you, all one word. You can find the link in the description box below, and I'll put a card on this video. And we have added 2 additions, a 90-day challenge to become secure, because our data shows that that's what takes place if people follow what we put out for the 90-day challenge, as well as we are adding 3 extra social events every single week: a guided morning routine, evening routine, and mastermind group where people can ask questions and share and do all that stuff on top of the 4 live webinars we have. So very exciting stuff. Let's talk about the red flags. So as I've said in the past part of these series, we ignore the red flags that are the deepest reflection of our own behavior in the relationship to ourselves. I feel like I can't say that enough. And so when we have red flags we're ignoring, what we have to recognize is, hey, this is telling us something very powerful and important about ourselves and about the relationship we have to ourselves. So what often takes place is when we get into a relationship dynamic and we're starting off, the things that would normally cause alarm bells because they would juxtapose the relationship to ourselves, because they're actually quite familiar instead, we don't have the same degree or the same loudness of alarm bells going off, if that makes sense as an analogy. So what does this look like for dismissive avoidance? Well, something really interesting is that dismissive avoidants are often in a very anxious relationship to themselves, to their own time, to their own space, to their own energy, to their own privacy. They're often very much trying to micromanage and control these things because this creates this nest for them to feel like they can self-soothe. And when they grew up in a dynamic or environment where they didn't have a lot of ability to rely on others, or that didn't go well, or soothing through others wasn't really an option, then soothing of self felt like a survival tool. And so when dismissive avoidants get into relationships with other people, people who are anxious of their time or around their time, they won't necessarily know will be something that they might struggle with later, feeling like to a certain degree their boundaries are infringed on. Now, something really interesting is that if anxious and dismissive avoidants in a relationship dynamic can both meet each other a little bit close to halfway, like take a step towards sort of like take on some of each other's programming to a certain degree, can actually be very healthy for both of them. Now, I'm not sitting here saying this is a healthy dynamic for an anxious and a DA to get in, please stay in this dynamic. What I am saying is part of the anxious preoccupied's healing is to learn to have a relationship to themselves and to be a little bit more in themselves and their feelings, and learn how to self-soothe, learn to have better boundaries, learn to take themselves into consideration when they're making decisions. And part of the dismissive avoidance healing is learning how to move towards more interpersonal relationships with others by opening up, being more vulnerable, compromising sometimes, taking others into consideration more often. Like both of them can sort of come together here. So we say they're red flags because they're things that would definitely like affect dismissive avoidant, but there can be important lessons in some of these things as well. So for dismissive avoidance, it can absolutely be they don't notice when people are anxious in the relationship with them. Again, at a conscious level, they might notice, but at a subconscious level, it might be a comfort zone in the initial stages. Then what will often happen is if it feels like it's becoming too close, if somebody feels like it's too close, their wounds and fears of vulnerability will overpower their subconscious comfort zone and take precedence. And that's what will drive a DA to then push somebody away, even though that closeness that the person craved might have been something they were originally attracted to. Okay. Another thing, dismissive avoidants often won't recognize when somebody makes them feel unsafe. They usually grew up feeling unsafe. And I've seen a lot of dismissive avoidants over the years be in relationships for what we could call far too long that were very unhealthy in terms of like having a lot of volatility. And while this again is something that will eventually push a DA away, because they really are trying to get their needs met for safety, and that will take precedence over time, that subconscious comfort zone can often be that core wound of feeling I am unsafe can often be a bit of a subconscious comfort zone. And again, in the dating phase, in the very early parts of dating, can be something that the person is attracted to until it gets too big or too strong or too loud. And then it becomes the exact same thing that really pushes them to run as far away as possible and drive people away. Okay. Another big thing that DAs will often overlook, and this is a red flag that's more long term that can often be ignored, is somebody not seeing you. Often dismissive avoidants won't realize when somebody is making them feel unseen, when they feel unheard. And part of this is the DA's work, because the DA has to like learn that they can be seen and heard by others and express themselves and believe in their ability to get heard and advocate for their feelings, which is a very scary thing and something often DAs will spend a lot of time avoiding or ignoring. But by the same token, dismissive avoidants often ignore when they feel unseen or unheard, because again, part of the subconscious comfort zone, and again, the deepest reflection of our own behavior in the relationship to ourselves, right? Like, I ignore my own feelings, I don't see my own feelings, and so it's normal and comfortable for me for you to also ignore my feelings, and my alarm bells don't really go off in the same way because of that dynamic. Another thing, sometimes DAs ignore when somebody's shaming them, again because of this subconscious comfort zone. And sometimes this can be because another person has a poor way of communicating when they've built up and they haven't learned how to express effectively, and it comes out as being very like harsh and rude and shaming. And that's where a DA really has to be able to set a boundary and say, like, this type of communication is not okay. If we both have to work on something, let's talk about it, but let's talk about it in a healthy manner or format. Um, and so part of healing as a dismissive avoidant means expressing yourself, expressing your needs, working on vulnerability, learning to be a little bit more malleable. I think there's like an old quote in the Tao somewhere, and it says something about it's better to be soft and malleable than hard and rigid and brittle. You know, you become more breakable that way. And I'm totally paraphrasing that, but something along those lines. And part of like the healing of the DA is to become more malleable and flexible and compromising. And it can feel really scary at first, but it's actually ultimately something that leads to more long-term happiness and feeling more safe out in the world. And that's hard to do when we're repressing our feelings and needs. So it's really important to be clear about getting back in touch with your feelings so that your feelings can guide you towards your needs, because this is often what they're trying to do in the first place. And then from there, be able to advocate for yourself, communicate, be vulnerable, show up, and become more flexible in your interactions also. So I hope this all makes sense. Thank you so much for watching and for being here. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.